the most sensitive and sought-after public service in Kenya has been access to justice. Thousands of inmates across the country's prisons have suffered immensely due to delayed or absence of justice. The absence of effective and prompt dispensation of justice leads to human rights abuses. Unfortunately, the most affected by this scenario are the vulnerable in society. There are several factors responsible for this, including files which go missing in the courts. The majority of remandees are poor and not able to pay for legal representation in court, inadequate number of judges, lawyers and advocates, corruption in the judicial system, among other things. The process of prison reforms can be said to have begun in earnest less than 10 years ago. This can be largely attributed to human rights and civil society pressure on the government. One of the organizations that has been in the forefront of this crusade is the Legal Resources Foundation, LRF.
One of the innovative things that we are doing within the justice system with the judiciary is the establishment of what we call access to justice committees. These are committees that were supposed to bring all the stakeholders within the criminal justice system initially to come and speak to each other. That is, you'd have, for example, if an offender is not produced in court, the judge would give a summon or an order for the police officer or the prison officer to come show reason and cause why they could not produce this particular person. That was seen more of a one-sided approach, whereby the officer would also feel, I'm also equally important, so you don't summon me to come before you, so I won't come. And that drilled the whole criminal justice system. But when you introduced the Access to Justice Committee, that became better because all these actors, the judge, the magistrate, police, would come to a round table and discuss, these are the reasons as to why I could not be able to produce this person in court in good time.
LRF works within the prisons under a paralegal program of trained officers in everything in regard to law, from legal procedures to the trial process to the statutes of Kenyan law.
Na kama umelazimishwa uandike statement utafanya nini? Utakanusha wapi? Kotini. Utakanusha kotini, si ndio? Haya, haki nyingine ni
wakati unaposhikwa unauliza askari amekushika kwa sababu gani?
The work of Legal Resources Foundation has started showing definite transformation in access to justice, at least in the prisons where they operate. Within the prison system, inmates never used to know their rights and believed that by virtue of being a prisoner, they had automatically lost all rights. The case of Maurice Owor, a juvenile remandee, is just a representation of the tens of thousands benefiting from the paralegal services in Kenyan prisons today. Initially, all seemed lost for Maurice. He could neither afford a lawyer nor understand the case well enough to defend himself in a court of law. But the situation changed when he met Elizabeth Otieno.
I never had a lawyer. So when I went before the court, I raised up my hand and made some applications. And actually they assisted me, and right now I have a lawyer and I'm through with my case.
Known as barefoot lawyers, paralegals are people trained in all the matters, procedures and statutes of law, and they offer invaluable legal services to the people who may not be able to afford the services or are ignorant of them. A normal day for Elizabeth would entail visits to Kisumu's Kodiaga prison, a facility for both men and women, scheduled visits to the Children's Remand Center in Kisumu, and also have meetings with different court users committees.
In the prison, in the morning they prepare people for courts. So before they prepare, as they are preparing people for courts, we have some people come, the inmates come for maybe the phone calls, they want the phone calls, you see. Someone comes and asks you for your appeal, something like that. From 9 to 1, we assemble those who need paralegal aid session. So they come, we teach them on the court procedures, how to apply for the bond reduction, issues to do with court. Then after that, they can ask questions. We identify the needy cases. We do the screening. If there are cases that are needed for referral, we refer them to our partners who can intervene and help in those cases.
This congestion in the prisons can be attributed to the slow pace at which resolution of the cases take and the poor understanding of the court procedures by most of the court users.
In every criminal offense, there are what we would call ingredients, the components that will make the offense complete, which the prosecution needs to prove for them to secure a conviction. But most of the time you would find that even in the way the statement has been drafted, some of the integral ingredients have been left out. The complainant didn't touch on them, or the witnesses didn't touch on them. So as the witnesses are giving evidence, this integral ingredient has not even been proved, it has not even been touched. So you'll find a scenario where, because of the carelessness of the person who was involved, or even his ignorance, the person is set free when maybe he ought not to have been set free.
Initially we didn't meet, but they organized for the meeting between the court users, all court users, and the problems that were initially there were ironed out, because police could fear the magistrate could fear police, and then the blame was being shifted.
Together with other prisons officers who underwent training through the Legal Resources Foundation, Elizabeth has been able to provide legal aid to many inmates in both the women's and the men's penitentiaries. This support from the Legal Resource Foundation and other stakeholders in the judiciary is gradually becoming noticeable, and now it is becoming easier and faster to access justice for many Kenyans who hitherto saw it as a pipe dream.
So there was always that very, you could say, very harsh restriction, when you wanted to mingle with the prisoners, even when you wanted to give them legal representation. So I think their major achievement is they've penetrated that, all right? So now it's very easy to talk to prisoners. There's no such restrictions.
When it comes to the issue of human rights, the inmates, they know their rights while in prison. Yeah. The issue of HIV and AIDS, they have the information at hand. Yes, and then the issue of congestion in prisons, at least through their legal advice, when they appear in court, they're able to get that they're advised. But after they've acquired this information from the Legal Resource Foundation officers, they're able to use this information to represent themselves in court, and by so doing, either one will be released or will be given an affordable bail or put on CSO.
One good example of positive change in the legal system is the case of Jeffries Ombino. Together with her husband, she was charged with causing grievous bodily harm to one of their children. While she admits the child being hurt, she was able to argue her position that indeed she was not responsible, but her husband.
Kuingia kwa nyumba pa na wakatushika sisi wote. Mimi nikijaribu kujitetea wakakataa. Wakatupeleka Central. Kwenda Central tukalala, silikuwa na Sunday. Ikifika Monday wanatupeleka kotini. Kufika kotini, kweli bwananga alikubali makosa. Alikubali akifikiria watafanya nini, waniachilia nirudi kwa nyumba. Na vile nilikuwa pale, mafunzo yao ndio ilifanya hata vile nilienda pale kotini, because walikuwa nipatia bondi ya 30,000. Na kulingana vile walinifunza, ilinipatia moral. Wakaniambia unaweza ukaomba, unaweza ukapeana malilio. Enyewe malilio yangu alisikia. Ukanirudishia bondi ya 20,000.
As the Legal Resources Foundation looks forward to build the capacity of the paralegals in all its stations, the questions of finding the right mix of people is critical in increasing this legal aid service. The challenges may appear insurmountable, but the energy exhibited by Elizabeth is not only encouraging, but impacting positively to the people who would never have known justice. One of the stations that has seen a direct impact on its operations through the intervention of LRF is the Rongo Magistrates Court. The Court Users Committee decided to put benchmarks on its overall operation. This paid dividends, as it can now handle and settle an average of over 100 cases in a month.
Cases are moving very fast because of the coordination we have between the stakeholders. We normally deliver judgments in 2 weeks. So if today I finish your case, within 2 weeks the judgment is ready.
For the Legal Resources Foundation, the support given by Trocaire is evermore playing a pivotal role in enabling the thousands of deprived people to access justice.
The presence of paralegals in the prison system has really helped in terms of ensuring that the civil society organizations have a presence in the prison, and they are able to encourage respect for human rights of the inmates or those in prison, whether they are there as having been sentenced, or whether they are there as remandees waiting for their case to be heard. And we have begun to see reduction in the violation of the rights of prisoners as a result of this dialogue between Legal Resource Foundation paralegals and prisons officers.
However, the efforts of LRF with the support of Trocaire alone cannot substantially change the needs for access of justice. There is need for the goodwill of the government and policy framework to enable this noble initiative of improving the justice system in Kenya, in particular, the expansion of paralegal program in the prison service.